with another great episode of the ABNF podcast. Nick, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, man. You know, we're going to be talking, obviously, hoops, which is always a great thing. Yeah. But we're going to be talking about something very, very differently because, obviously, the NBA, you know, it's the dead part of the season, obviously. So we're going to be talking about fantasy basketball in this episode, Graham. So I'm very looking forward to this. It's going to be a very interesting episode.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And again, if you guys have not already subscribed or have checked out more of our episodes of the ABNF podcast, please make sure to do so. Link will be down below in the YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, link will be down below for our last episode. And then you can check out on our main page all of our episodes from the past 2 years, Nick. I can't believe it's almost been 2 years since we started this podcast. Feels like time does not go by that quickly, but we're already here, man. We're about to cover our third season of basketball on this podcast, so I'm really excited for that. And due to the dead period that we've had, so we talked a little bit about the Olympics the last two episodes. Actually, not a little bit. We talked a lot about the Olympics the last two episodes. So, guys, if you have not checked those out, please do so down below. And remember to share this with your friends and family, too, because we definitely appreciate all the support and the new listeners that we get onto the pod. It seems like our Spotify page has definitely been getting more listeners as we've continued to put out episodes. So if you like listening to audio during work, or if you're like just trying to like listen to something to like pass your day, definitely give it a listen. It's on Spotify. Look All Ball No Foul on Spotify, and you'll be able to find it there. So Nick, we're talking about fantasy today.
Yep.
And this is going to be the first time we've actually done this. So let's talk a little bit about this right now.
Yep.
So we have 100 players. We're not going to list all of them because otherwise we'll be here all night.
Yep.
But we're going to definitely do the top 50. So I know that before we started, you wanted to give us the top 10 first. We'll list then everybody else, and then we're going to kind of go through like fixes or things that we think, you know, could have been better for this too early, the too early ranking right now.
So. Absolutely. Yeah, so this isn't, the way we're going to be listing these players, this isn't our rankings. This is ESPN's early rankings going into, you know, this upcoming fantasy basketball season. So let's get to it, man. I'll drop the top 10 and see what we think about it. Obviously. So number 1, they have Luka Doncic, number 1 overall. Number 2, they got Nikola Jokic. 3 is SGA. 4 is Victor Wembanyama. They got 5, Giannis Antetokounmpo. They got 6, Jason Tatum. 7, Joel Embiid. 8, Anthony Davis. 9, Domantas Sabonis. And 10, Anthony Edwards. And that's the early top 10 going into this fantasy basketball season rankings. What are
your thoughts?
I would jump right into it. I know on this pod, a couple episodes ago, I did say Anthony Edwards was going to win the MVP. I think he's too low. I think Anthony Edwards should be at least in the top 6 somewhere. He's got to be, you know, in that conversation. I think he's going to just take a big leap, man, big jump. And I just think he's going to put himself in that bona fide superstar category. He's coming with the vengeance, man, losing in the Western Conference Finals. He didn't perform well in the Conference Finals, which is, to be honest, I think. And I think a lot of people are actually not really talking about Minnesota so much. Everyone's been talking about Clay going to Dallas. No one's really been talking about Minnesota so much because they really haven't made any moves.
I mean, Minnesota did stay stagnant for sure, but I would also say they're kind of in a very salary-locked situation with Rudy Gobert's contract, giving Ant an extension. You also locked up Jaden McDaniels. So right now for them, I feel like they have to kind of stay where they are. But I do think Ant was ranked too low on this list, I think at 10. And he probably is going to be the best player on Team USA. We were talking about that last episode.
For 2028.
He's definitely going to probably be one of the captains of the team for sure.
Yeah.
And just his demeanor and just who he is as a person is just, he loves to be the guy, and he is not afraid of anybody. So we don't have a lot of fearless guys, and he's going to be one of those only guys that we really have. So I think 1, 2, 3 are good.
Yeah.
I don't think Wemby should be top 10. Or not top 10. He should be top 10, but he shouldn't be top 5. I think that it's still a little too early.
I agree.
And my reason for that is because I think that while he's going to be the number one option in San Antonio, like he was last year, even with the additions of Chris Paul, who's really old, and Harrison Barnes on that trade, you got some veterans there. I just don't see a world where he's getting more points than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, if we look at like a lot of fantasy leagues, depending on how you have your points, and I know you were also talking about the categories. Some people do it by categories, so it's like, what players do you want? Because if you're winning based on like, okay, how many of your players had double doubles during the week, right? You're going to get points that way. Like, Giannis is literally a 30 and 16 kind of player. And I know that Wemby is freakishly athletic, but I think in a lot of, like, point-based fantasy leagues where you're winning just based on the points that the player has, I think while Wemby does give you a good amount of points, I do think that he's still going to be on a minutes limit. I think that, like, he's only going to play a certain amount of minutes a game just because of how Pop is as a coach. So I think we both agreed we would put him at 8. Was it 8?
Yeah, I believe, So somewhere in the top 10, but definitely not top 5. I agree with you there.
So who would you... So, like, at 4, right, then we would have Giannis. And then you said...
I think Ant should be 5 on this list. I believe so. Then I do agree with Tatum and Embiid. The only reason why Embiid is slipping down a bit, just because obviously injury concerns
and age.
Jason Tatum, regular season wise, he is very, very consistent in the regular season. There's no doubt he does put up big points. I would pretty much argue the 8, 9, 10 spots, like we talked about Anthony Edwards already. Anthony Edwards and Domantas Sabonis, this is too high. I understand Anthony Davis was healthy, played 76 games, and Domantas Sabonis actually played all 82 games last season, so that's another fact. Like, I understand it, but this was the first year Anthony Davis has really been healthy since, like, his younger, days.
Yeah, 76 games, that's pushing it.
Yeah, that is pushing it, and I just think the Lakers, man, they're going to be discombobulated, and I feel like a lot of these players are going to be sitting out games and stuff, especially back-to-back. So I don't... You wrote on as part of the notes, he's probably only going to play between 50 and 63 games, and I can't dispute that. I absolutely agree with you on that.
I just don't see him playing more than 70 games this year. And I'm thinking about the average amount of games he's played for the Lakers outside of the COVID year. And then last season, he's played about, I would say, somewhere between like 45 to like 55 games each year for the Lakers. Injuries, I mean, like, he was kind of in and out the year that LeBron hurt his foot, so that when they made the Western Conference Finals, like, he was like in and out. But I just don't think he should be 8 because of his injury history, and then I think also, like, yes, he's a good fantasy player. Like, I think he gets points. He's going to probably give you about like 50 fantasy points a game. But I don't think that you can rely on that if he's going to get hurt, because then he's going to be on your IR for 3 weeks if he tweaks his ankle or something. Which I hope. I really hope he can stay healthy. So, and then Sabonis. I just think that locker room is going to be very crowded in terms of like who's going to be doing what. Because you got
DeMar's there.
Because you got DeMar, right? Malik Monk is a really good like bench fantasy player that you can have, like a guy that you put in your utility spot or in like the second guard spot that you have. And then DeMar is going to be your starting small forward this year.
Keegan Murray's going to make a leap.
Right. And I just think, like, if we're talking about if Sabonis is going to be your center, like, it's not. I think that Sengun should be in front of him, personally.
Now that's an interesting guy.
Right.
We'll definitely talk about.
And we'll talk about him because Nick, he's like further down the list, right? But I think Sengun should actually be in front of both of them. Personally, that's just my opinion.
I just think with the whole Sabonis thing, I understand why he's ranked so high. I mean, I think he averaged about, what was it, like 18, 19 points a game, almost 14 rebounds a game and 8 assists. I mean, this guy was a triple-double machine, and I said on this pod during the season last year, how the hell was he not in the All-Star game with those numbers? And the Kings, I think at that point, were like a top 5 seeded team in the Western Conference, right? They were in the top 6, I believe, if I remember correctly.
If you're talking about the All-Star break this past season, Sabonis definitely got robbed. He had a great season for the Kings. He actually ended up being a replacement, though, an injury replacement. So he did still end up being in the All-Star game. But yes, I think that there's going to always be one or two guys. I think we've agreed on this in the pod. there's always going to be like those guys that are like right there that should have gotten in, but they still end up getting in because there's some injury that happens, right? Like I think that happened also with God, why can I not think of Devin Booker for like the longest time. The dude like wasn't getting in the All-Star game, but he would basically be an injury replacement. Jalen Brunson, I thought, was definitely the first the snub that he had where they put Randall ahead of him. When I thought Jalen Brunson was a huge reason why the Knicks took a leap. Not because of Randall, I thought because of Brunson for sure. So who do we have at 9 then, Nick? In this re-rank, who do we have at 9?
Wow, if we had to re-rank these just the specific top 10, I honestly would take Sabonis over Anthony Davis. Sabonis, for the most part, is healthy, and he does put up, pretty decent numbers. But the talent of Anthony Davis, I understand why people would take AD.
Sure.
I don't want my first-round pick, or even early second-round pick, to be somebody where he's only really been healthy 1 full year in the last, 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
That's scary.
I get that. So,
so if I had to re-rank them, I would have Luka. No, I would have Jokic 1. I would have Jokic,
so Jokic 1.
Okay. I would have Luka 2. I have Shea 3, Giannis 4, Ant 5, Tatum 6, Embiid 7, Wemby 8. Then if we're just going by between Sabonis and AD, I personally would put Sabonis over AD.
So
just
Sabonis
for
at 9
purposes, yes.
9. Okay. I don't disagree with that. I actually if I were gonna do this, I know this is something that we talked about too. Trae Young, I think, should possibly be a top 10 pick. If you're not gonna put like a guy like Brunson or Mitchell, I think Trae Young is gonna actually be really good in fantasy this year because there's nobody else on his team. They traded away DeJounte Murray, and I don't really feel like Atlanta's in this position to really do much in terms of competing for like a playoff position, like a play-in spot. And then I'd probably put, like I said, I would have I'd actually have AD and Sabonis out of the top 10.
I agree. Me too, personally. If I was,
I'd keep them around like 15 to 20. I think that's fair. But I would definitely put like Trae. I would actually say this. I would probably put Trae at 9 and then Sengun. If I'm not gonna take Brunson or Mitchell, I would put Sengun at 10 because because the thing about it is that once you get from Sengun, like you'll still have Sabonis and AD if you haven't taken a center with your
bigs.
So like you have Sabonis, AD, and then Bam. Bam's probably gonna be the next center after them. So those are like you have your 4 like main bigs because Sengun definitely took a leap last year in terms of he was like in the conversation for MIP. I think that he should be definitely a guy that we should be looking at. I think that the Rockets are trying to shop Jalen Green. So I think he's going to be one of the best players on their team. I would say that. So let's go from 11 to 20 next.
Yeah, so 11 they have Donovan Mitchell.
Okay.
They got Ja Morant 12, Jalen Brunson 13. They got Trae Young 14th. Tyrese Halliburton 15th, Devin Booker 16th, Sengun 17th, De'Aaron Fox 18th, they have Scotty Barnes 19th, and Tyrese Maxey 20th. I want to say this real quick. It's very interesting how they have a lot of bigs in the top 10, but this pool is a lot of guards. It's a lot of guards, and I think a lot of people are like, just like you were mentioning, like with the bigs. After these bigs goes, it's kind of like fantasy football. If you don't draft a running back in the first 2 rounds, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed because the downfall is so much. It's like with the guards in the NBA, like for fantasy basketball, is so deep, just like how the wide receivers are in fantasy football. That position is so deep in fantasy. I think that's why a lot of people that are probably going to take these bigs early in the draft because just like you said, after the top 5 bigs, there is a huge drop-off in production.
Yeah, and I think, just like you mentioned, though, for sure, in the NFL, like the running back in fantasy, I think even this year, too, because of how, I mean, if you think about it, Ezekiel Elliott is going to be starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys this year, and
Well, they signed Dalvin Cook today. I don't know.
Oh, they did. Oh shit! I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I mean, Dalvin Cook also was on the Jets last year, and that didn't really do much. So, yeah, I would say I would definitely say that for like your bigs, like it is like a running back, or I'd even say like a tight end. Because if you think about it,
that's true too.
There's only really about 4 or 5 tight ends that people really argue is like, hey, that guy's really good. Like we know Kelsey's always going to be a top pick, and then Laporta was like the big one this year because of how good he was last year as a rookie. Trey McBride was ranked like the number 2 tight end in like every fantasy draft, and when you were looking at like the board. He was like ranked number 2. Obviously, Mark Andrews is always a target for Lamar. So yeah, but to get back to basketball, I would, I think, like the guard position is like you can argue. So I know I said Trey, going up to 9. So obviously like
Trey's low on this list.
Yeah,
especially with no DeJounte Murray, he's gonna put up monster numbers. Trey Young is gonna put up 28 and 12. 28 and 11, something like that.
Yeah. He'll still put up good numbers. They're not gonna win a lot, but he'll put up good numbers. So they'll have a top pick next year, maybe, because the guy that they got number 1 overall, I don't really think he's gonna be anything like to go home about. I don't think he's great.
So if you want to break this down real quick, so you got 11 through 16 are all guards: Mitchell, Morant, Brunson, Trey Young, Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Booker. How would you rank them?
I'd put, all right, if I were looking at this, if I'm looking at that, so I would say put Brunson at 11.
So you put Brunson over Trey Young?
No, because I got Trey.
Okay.
So I'm saying like,
I just named them from here. Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it like this. If I'm thinking in the sense of, yes, I know the Knicks, like you said before we started, the Knicks are going to have a lot of guys this year. I do think that Jalen Brunson still is going to be that main guy. Like, yes, they got Mikal Bridges, but Mikal Bridges is an off-the-ball player.
Yeah.
He's going to hit corner threes.
True.
He's going to be their best wing defender. OG Anunoby's going to come back. But again, another guy off the ball, doesn't need the ball in his hands. Jalen Brunson's going to be getting a lot of assists. He's going to cut you up still. I think he could still be I think he's it's fair to keep him in between 11 to 15. I put him at 11.
Yeah.
I actually put Ja ahead of Donovan Mitchell because if Ja is going to be healthy this year, Ja's a really good fantasy player. So I'd say Brunson, then Ja, then Donovan. So I would say 11, 12, 13 need to be flipped a little bit.
You take Donovan over your boy Tyrese?
Yeah, dude. I love Tyrese, but here's the problem. So he's great at the beginning. So last year, right? Yeah. He was great at the beginning of the year for fantasy, and then because of that drop off that he had after the the in-season tournament, and then that when we got into 2024 around the All-Star break, he just kind of dropped. And his fantasy numbers went down tremendously. Yeah. So I just can't trust. I love Halliburton, and I think he's again the most unselfish point guard that we know that is playing right now.
Yeah.
But I can't trust him for a full year in fantasy. So I'm gonna leave him where he's at. I think he's at 15, right?
Tyrese is 15. Yeah.
Tyrese is at 15. So. I'll put Sabonis at 14. And then I would actually put AD, because I put Sengun, because what's Sengun at again? He's
17 on this list.
Okay, so if I say he's 10, right, I'd probably put AD where Sengun is at 17. And then, okay, so so I put Sengun, so Sengun's at 10, AD's at 17. Because I mean, still, we said, the drop off with bigs is going to be big. So, actually, you know what? But here's the thing, though. We haven't talked about a couple of the older guys that they're nowhere on this list, and I think all of them are still going to actually put up good fantasy numbers this year, depending on the health. I think if they can all stay relatively healthy, They should all be higher than where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think Scotty Barnes 19th. I think that's just too high. I understand it.
Okay, so I'm gonna say I'll put 80 at 17. Hallie's at 16. At 15 would then be Booker's at 15 or not 16? 16. So Hallie's at 15. Booker's at 16. I'll put 80 at 17. De'Aaron's at 18, right?
Yeah.
And then. Yeah, so we'll keep De'Aaron at 18. I think I do think De'Aaron Fox does put up good fantasy numbers. I'm not gonna move him. 19 Scotty Barnes. I mean, I could argue.
You just filled the stat sheet though. I get it. He did average. I don't know how many points he averaged, but I know his rebounds and assists were up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say
First position.
at 19 with Scotty being at 19. I'll leave him there. And then 20 was Maxey.
Yeah.
We'll go through 21 and through 30, but I'm going to move Maxey actually back a little bit. And the only reason is because they have Paul George. And that's why I just don't think fantasy production-wise,
I'll take a dip for sure.
I think that Paul George on paper is supposed to be the third option. I think that it's going to be between him and Maxey as the second option. We know Embiid's number one.
Yeah.
He's going to be that guy still. But I do think that Paul George is going to still want 20 shots a game.
Yeah.
And there's just no way that Tyrese Maxey is going to... Because when Harden was the third guy, Harden was playing off the ball. Well, not off the ball. He was playing more point guard, and then Maxey was more of a scoring guard.
Yeah.
So I think that this is going to be different where Maxey's going to control more of the offense, and then Paul George is going to play more off the ball.
Yep.
And he loves shooting threes. So I can imagine that Paul George is going to take shots away from Maxey this year, which then tells me that George is actually going to be better in fantasy than I think where he's ranked. So how do you feel about that though, Nick? 11 through 20. What would you do anything different than what I just listed? Who would you have?
Ooh, man, I'll tell you what, man. John Morant's that guy this year that's going to either win you a league or you're coming in dead last.
Depending on if he can stay healthy or not get suspended?
Yeah, I mean, because if he's on the floor and he plays 70 games, John Morant, to me then, is easily top 10 fantasy production-wise.
Okay. So...
But again, he's the guy that... He's the risk.
Yeah,
in the top few rounds, for sure. He is the absolute risk. So, yeah, that's interesting. But I'll tell you what, man. I was looking at this 20 through 30, and this is the most interesting
that's the one
players.
I think that this is going to be the one that we have the most adjustments.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we have 21 is Bam Adebayo, 22 is Kyrie Irving, 23 is Kevin Durant, 24 is LeBron, 25 is Kawhi, 26 is Paolo Banchero, 27 is LaMelo Ball, 28 is Cade Cunningham, 29 is Damian Lillard, and 30 is Zion Williamson.
Kawhi should not be top 30.
I agree.
I'm sorry. The guy can't stay healthy.
Taking him top 30. Hell no.
He's not going to be healthy. They don't have Paul George anymore. And James Harden is your second best player.
And he's going to have the ball in his hands so much. That's just who he is. You know?
Yeah. And the thing is that how many games is Kawhi going to play? Because now I don't think he's playing to win. He's just playing because he has to.
Yeah.
Because he's getting paid and they're in a new arena. So
yeah, it's funny how that he played 68 games last year, but he knew that he would, because he had to do that to get the contract extension.
Yep.
They decided to pay Kawhi and not Paul George. They let Paul George walk.
Yeah, I mean, Paul George wanted the same exact money as Kawhi, and they're like, no.
No. Yeah, I would say with this group, I think Kevin Durant and LeBron are just too low. And LeBron actually played 71 games last year. Kevin Durant played 75.
So if they're healthy,
yeah,
where would you have them?
If they are healthy, if they're going to play this many games, they both should easily be in the top 20.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think that they definitely, LeBron.
I would pick Kevin Durant over... Ooh, that'd be interesting. Him or Devin Booker fantasy-wise. I probably would lean towards Kevin Durant, honestly. But I can see why people would take Devin Booker for sure. I just say I understand why LeBron is dropping. I mean, he's gonna be 40.
No, I mean I get it. Like I get why people, or at least the experts would say, LeBron's value this year versus previous years is going to be lower this year because of his age.
Yep.
But I do think that, I mean, dude, I know we said this last episode, but the dude is just like, I can't explain it. I don't know what he spends $2 million on his body every year, unless he's going to choose to slow down. Like, if he can play even like 65 games, dude, he's giving you like 60 to 70 like fantasy points, depending on again how your league's set up. He's going to give you a lot of points. Kevin Durant should, again, probably the leading scorer on their team again this year. I just, I don't even with Bradley Beal healthy, I think that KD should be.
What's interesting too is they actually have some sort of point guard on this team.
Yes.
They could at least run sets. I just felt like with Phoenix, I personally stayed away from Phoenix players because I knew it was going to be a free for all. Which it kind of was, but I think this year having the Tyus Jones that could at least run the offense a little bit and get these guys to put them in positions to let them get to their spots. Kevin Durant is easily top 20. LeBron, easily top 20. I mean, if he still could average 24, 8, and 7 like he did last year on 54% shooting, and he actually shot 75% for the free throw line. That's pretty good for LeBron.
I think he shoot like 39% from 3 too. So he had his best 3-point shooting season. So
I understand he's gonna be 40, and if they're off to a bad start or a lot of these back-to-back, is LeBron gonna be playing in a lot of these situations?
So if you have I would say if you have a close week where you need all your players to play every day, don't rely on LeBron if you see the Lakers having a back-to-back that week. That's the one risk with taking him. I mean, he can, but here's the thing though, you can plug and play him in at multiple positions. So especially in fantasy, where he can play the small forward or power forward, and sometimes in some years ESPN will put him at point guard too. So he can play 3 positions for you. So you can put him in forward for your bench, your utility players, your power forward, your small forward, or your point guard, or even the guard, because again he has that guard label on him too. And it just depends on what ESPN puts him this year. I think it'll probably be small forward, power forward, but still, I would argue he should be there. I think Kevin Durant too. Kevin Durant is going to still be the best player on Phoenix this year.
Absolutely.
Who else would you move around? Because I know that you didn't love Scotty at 19.
I did not. Personally, I would say, I think Paolo Banchero is going to explode this year. I mean, he had a real good year last year. I think with that team with Orlando, he is the number one option. On a very, very scrappy team that was 5th in the Eastern Conference. They're still hungry. They play hard. He played 80 games last year. I mean, Paolo Banchero, man, I wouldn't be shocked this year if he's say he could go for 26, 7, and 5. That's realistic for him this year. I think you could see a jump like that. I know they paid Franz Wagner, but they didn't really make a significant move to bring in somebody they could have gotten a Paul George. They could have paid Paul George. Paul George obviously wanted to go to Philly.
I was really thinking that Paul George could have went to Orlando. That would have been interesting. Just in terms of the fit, and then also because Orlando was the 5th seed this past season, and I know we talked about him. We did talk about him on the podcast. I think that the first year when we did this, because what we try to do, the whole reason why we started the podcast was we wanted to talk more about topics that people don't always cover, because the media only talks about the Lakers, the Warriors, and then Kevin Durant or whatever Kyrie's doing. They don't talk about anything else. But nobody was talking about Orlando like that last year. I know we tried to bring them up, and. I think Paolo Banchero, like you said, he is going to definitely take another step forward. I think that if you need a guy, because he's not going to be labeled as a center, he's going to be labeled as a power forward. If I'm remembering correctly, and small forward. So if you need a power forward, small forward, and let's say your 2nd or 3rd pick, in your draft, if he's still available and you're in your third pick and he's still available, you need to take him.
He's a home run pick
Because he's gonna be good. Mm-hmm. He's gonna get you good fantasy points.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's realistic that he can get to 26, 7, and 8 this year.
Yeah.
I don't think that's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
there's a lot of injury-prone players on this list.
Like LaMelo and Cade, I think both should be below 30. I think that Cade every year. I remember Cade 2 years ago in fantasy was a top 10 pick. I actually had him as so I had my 2 top picks was Tyrese Halliburton and Cade Cunningham. I had 2 guards, and I remember when Cade went out because of the shins, and it just seems that every year for Cade he just gets an injury. He's a good player,
great player,
talented,
yeah,
right. But they're both question marks. LaMelo's also a very talented player, but just like Lonzo, he does deal with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, he only played 22 games this past year, LaMelo.
So, and the thing too is just LaMelo, dude, was going top pick 2 years ago in fantasy. He was a top 15 guy that was going in most fantasy drafts.
Yeah,
I think that he'll probably be a 4th, 5th round pick this year. I just don't think he's at 29. Or 20. Is he? No, he's above Cade, so he's at 28.
Yes.
Right? Cade's at 29, and then 30 was...
Cade's 28.
Cade's 28, LaMelo's 27.
Damian
is 29.
Yes, and Zion is 30.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dame and Zion should be ahead of those two.
I agree.
Just in terms of Dame was healthy for the most part in the regular season. I know that the whole thing that happened in the playoffs, Zion actually played his most healthy season last year. Yep. But it's another AD situation.
That was his first year.
I can't rely on 1 year of you being healthy and saying, do I want to spend a top pick on you? I'll keep him where he's at 30. I'm not going to move him. Somebody I would move, though, I would move, if I were going to move some guys, right? So like you said, LeBron and KD should be top 20.
I agree.
I think that Bam, I just don't. I think Desmond Bane at 22 is. It's a little.
Oh, you mean Kyrie Irving at 22?
Sorry, Kyrie's at 22. Is Bane is 23?
No, KD's 23. Desmond Bane is on the next pod of players.
Okay, sorry, my bad. I'm thinking because when we were looking at this list beforehand, so I keep Kyrie where he's at. He had a good season. I don't think there's anything I would do. Yeah, I mean, honestly, besides LeBron and KD, I think those two you move.
Yeah.
I think you move down LaMelo and Cade, and then move up Dame and Zion above them.
I agree. Yeah, Dame had a huge drop-off year, man. He only shot 42% from the field.
Yeah.
And I remember because in our fantasy basketball league, I had the last pick of the draft.
I remember.
I went Damon Bron. I went Damon Bron as back-to-back picks.
You definitely I told you though, your team actually had a lot of good players on it last year.
I had Zion too.
Yeah,
he was my 4th round pick. Everyone thought I was crazy. I'm like, well, weird feeling he's gonna stay healthy because everyone was talking shit about him.
No, you got what you needed out of him last year. So I don't think I didn't think you went wrong with that pick. If Zion can stay healthy, man, he's a great pickup. He's gonna be a sleeper. He's our dark horse pick. I would say he's a dark horse pick because are you going to trust that he's going to play 68 games again?
That's a good question. And not only that,
apparently he looks more slim now. Though, that's
interesting for a power forward too. He doesn't rebound the ball a whole lot.
No,
he averaged under 6 rebounds. And there's guards that are averaging over 6 rebounds.
but their center Valanciunas is like a rebound machine.
Yeah,
so
that's true too. Yeah.
So Steven Adams is their center. So that's so random too. He got hurt, was out for the season for the.
He gets traded.
Grizzlies. Then gets traded to the Pelicans.
Yeah.
And that's why the Pelicans weren't going to re-sign Valanciunas because they were going to get Adams, which I would have Adams over Valanciunas personally if I'm the center. Mm-hmm. Just because what he brings on the defensive end. All right, let's go through 31 through 40.
Yeah, so 31 they have DeJounte Murray. 32 is Desmond Bane.
Okay.
Lauri Markkanen's 33. Paul George is 34. Steph Curry is 35. Jalen Jackson Jr. is 36. Vooch, Nikola Vucevic, 37.
Get him out of here.
Karl Anthony Towns, 38. James Harden is 39.
Dude, James
and
Harden
Pascal Siakam
No.
is 40.
No. No, dude. This is cap beyond all belief.
I hear you on that.
All right, I want to hear. Okay, off the bat, who are you moving down? Because there's a couple guys you could definitely.
I just think DeJounte Murray got to go down just because there's a lot of players on the Pelicans, man, that need the ball. Ingram, McCollum's still there. Zion, when he's healthy, he's there. I love DeJounte Murray, the player. I really do. I love his game. I love he plays defense. He doesn't really need the ball in his hands to be effective. I love the player. Fantasy-wise, not on this team. If he got drafted somewhere else, possibly.
And he's also going to be on the Pelicans with Zion and C.J. McCollum and Brandon Ingram. What's still crazy is, like, they didn't trade shit to get DeJounte.
Not much. I mean, they traded 2 first-round picks, but...
Yeah, but how good...
They're banking on the Pelicans to be a top 6 team in the Western Conference going into this year. That's what the Pelicans are banking on.
Well, I mean, the Pelicans, they better hope they are, because they're going to be screwed if they're not.
No, it's true. I think Lauri Markkanen's. I think he's low, man. I understand he only played 55 games last year.
He just signed a massive extension.
Yeah, he signed a massive extension.
And he could get traded.
He's the guy for the Jazz.
Yeah.
It's actually very interesting. He can't get traded this year, though.
Oh, he can't? I thought he could.
So I read this. The Jazz were very, very strategic of when to give in Lauri Markkanen's contract. So the day that he signed the contract, there's a certain amount of days that you can't get traded. That last day ends the day after the deadline. That's why the Jazz did it. So they can't. So Lauri Markkanen can't go to them requesting a trade because the Jazz physically they can't. It's against the NBA rules. They can't trade them.
Okay.
When you sign a contract like that.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So it's very interesting.
I would still have him probably at the top.
I agree.
Of this 10 that we just listed. I would probably put him. Yeah, I would definitely put him above
DeJounte Murray.
Oh, yeah.
Desmond Bane he did put up big numbers. I think if John Morant stays healthy, that's going to help Desmond Bane if he can stay healthy too.
Sure.
I understand it. I mean, he is a bucket getter. Paul George is 34. Steph Curry 35 is asinine to me on this list. I'm sorry. I get it. He's getting older. There's going to be no Klay Thompson.
I think he could still be a really high.
I think he has to play so well in every game for them to have a chance. So he might just go. He's going to have to go bonkers every game. I mean, he did play 74 games. He was relatively healthy last year.
Yeah.
I understand fantasy-wise, he doesn't get many rebounds. He doesn't get many assists. I understand that. But, I mean, dude, this man can pull from the parking lot. He shoots over 92% from the free throw line. He doesn't really get much from the defensive end either. He doesn't get a lot of steals. Obviously, he ain't blocking shots. So, I mean, I understand it. But, like, Steph is still a top 10 player in the freaking NBA, dude.
I mean, if we were talking about this just in terms of NBA value, no, he's still a top 10 player. I think that if we're talking about fantasy value, probably I would say he could be anywhere between like 18 to like 27, like in terms of where his value is for that. Just because he's going to still put up, and again, it's all based on, everybody has their way of how they have fantasy set up.
Yeah.
I always play in leagues where we're going. I know our league also wasn't category based. It was all about like points. How many points are you scoring by the end of the week? And Curry is always going to like get you good fantasy numbers just because he shoots a lot of threes. He's gonna be the leading scorer. I mean, we saw him like in multiple games last year where he was going off because he had to, because the Warriors just were not a good team. And they just were. They were not the same team that they were. Even the year prior, or 2 years prior, when they won the whole thing again.
Yeah. And then you get the pool of bigs. You get Jalen Jackson Jr., Nikola Vucevic, and Karl Anthony Towns.
I think that Vuce should not be where he's at. I know the Bulls don't really have, they have Kobe White and then a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you need a center and you don't have one, I guess Vuce is a good option because he's still going to be the starter for the Bulls until they trade him.
Yeah, he is a double-double guy, though. And I mean, I understand it. He's normally, for the most part, he has been relatively healthy.
Yeah,
since joining the Bulls. Played 76 games last year. And he does shoot 48% from the field, but that's actually low for a center because he jacks up so many threes and he's not a 3-point shooter anymore.
No, he forgot.
He forgot to know how to shoot threes as soon as he got traded to the Bulls.
It's so sad. Every year it's gone down.
James Harden shouldn't be top 40. He should not be.
He should probably be behind Grayson Allen, who's 51, as you told me on this list, dude.
This is ridiculous that
I can't believe he's 50. He's the 51st ranked fantasy player. That's insane. There's guys that are better than Grayson Allen that are behind him.
I agree.
How the hell is Kobe White behind Grayson Allen? Can somebody explain that to me? Like, Kobe White's going to be the best player on the Bulls? Because Zach's probably not going to play again because he's still recovering from that foot surgery, or I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah, that's facts, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's absolutely crazy. And Pascal Siakam.
I think Pascal definitely should be ahead of James Harden. There's no way.
I agree with that. You should. When I list the 41st through 50, you're gonna be like, all these, majority of them should be ahead of James Harden.
Yeah.
When we get to that point, but is there anybody on that tandem between Murray, Bane, Market, and Paul George, Steph? Those guys, or Jalen Jackson, Karl-Anthony Towns.
I would have Paul George ahead of Kawhi Leonard, if I was being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Steph should be higher. I think Steph is definitely ahead of Desmond Bane and
DeJounte
Murray for sure. I mean, you could even argue that he should be above, he should be above Cade and LaMelo. Again, I get it. Some of this is all based on age, health. All those considerations all those factors have to be put into consideration. But if we're just viewing it on what he's going to have to do this year for that team, still, because let's face it, the Warriors outside of him, Podziemski, Kuminga, is Wiggins going to show up and be the guy he was 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Draymond is getting older. You don't have a lot of shooting on this team. You don't have a lot of... Actually, no, that's a lie. You have some shooting because they did get... they got Buddy Hield, and then who else? Where am I blanking on who else they got?
They got Kyle Anderson.
Okay, Kyle Anderson. Sorry,
and he can't shoot.
Never mind. Okay, they got Buddy Hield, and he's a good shooter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I still look at that team and say, all right, Steph Curry's still going to have to give you 35 points a game for you to win. So, yeah, Steph should be higher. I think everybody else you could argue could be lower on that list outside of Laurie, Paul George. And I get why Paul George is 30. I get why he's there because Tyrese and Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for you, would you have a guy like Lauri Markkanen top 20, or do you think that's too high for him?
Top 20.
Just because of his games played, and I know he's on the Jazz, but he's their best player.
Yeah, I don't know if I have him top 20. He should definitely be. I think he could be borderline top 25.
Top 25? Okay. That's fair because I've never thought of Laurie as the best fantasy guy, but I think if you need a power forward, because I think that's the one position people don't take right away is power forward. Mm-hmm. I always see people go, usually it's the center, then the small forward, then a point guard or shooting guard, and then it's usually you get your two guards, because you have that slew of guards, that whole middle is the guards. Mm-hmm. Then I feel like power forward always ends up going last, and there's not a lot of power forwards that you would take.
Yeah, even listed a lot of them. There's not many of them.
So Laurie's one of those top ones that you could argue.
Yeah. I would take him over Zion. Zion's ranked ahead of him. I'd take Lauri Markkanen.
Okay. Yeah. So personally, anybody else for you?
When it comes to this tandem, Pascal Siakam is consistent. He doesn't really put up enormous stats, but he's I think in this pool of players, when you get to that fourth, maybe early fifth round, I think he's just like a safe pick. He's one of those that Pascal Siakam, late fourth round, shit, sign me up, I'll take it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that I do think though too with Siakam, he really took a step up in his game too. in Indiana.
Yeah.
And I think when Halliburton was on the... So, like, this is something, too. I take him... I would say if I'm in your... Like, because I'm thinking about this. You're in a 10-man league, right? Mm-hmm. You're pick 3 or 4 in the 4th round.
Yeah.
I take Siakam, dude, because... Yeah, sure. Okay, the beginning of the year, he's not necessarily giving you the numbers you want, but I promise you, if Halliburton does what he's done the last 2 years, where he falls off the cliff at the end of the year because he gets hurt, Siakam's going to be the best guy on that team. He's going to be leading you in scoring. So you're going to get, like, let's say, like 35, maybe 40 fantasy points from him a game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not bad. That's good production.
That's
and
true.
He stays healthy for the most part. That's another thing, too.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of these guys that are listed ahead of him all have the injury question mark. Harden has an injury question mark. I would say Zion definitely has an injury question mark. Paul George has been known to have, like, ailing injuries. One of the only other guys that's on that list that I'm seeing that are, like, ahead of Siakam is, like, Laurie stays... Laurie has been... Actually, never mind. Not Laurie. Vooch has been one of the most healthy players, ironically, on that list. And then DeJounte also doesn't miss a lot of games.
No, he doesn't.
So those are like the two that I would say. Because
Pascal's always relatively healthy for the most part. So that's what I mean by he's just a super safe pick.
He's definitely a safe pick. I would say that if you're in need for a power forward, still take him. He's going to be one of the best power forwards you can take.
Yeah.
Because everybody else that's considered a power forward really plays the center now. So
yeah.
You don't have a lot, if you think about it. Like, Giannis would be the best power forward to take. But then after Giannis, AD really plays the center now. Sabonis technically plays the center now.
Yeah.
That's where the drop-off is.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about 41 through 50.
Yeah, so 41 is Jaylen Brown. 42 is Brandon Ingram. 43 is Jalen Johnson. 44 is Fred VanVleet. 45 is Miles Bridges. 46 is Chet Holmgren. 47 is Rudy Gobert. 48 is Jimmy Butler. 49 is Jalen Williams. And 50 is Jamal Murray.
I don't like I don't like that. I do not like that last time.
No.
I don't even know. I don't like that Jaylen Brown is 41.
I think it's just because there's so many players on Boston.
I get it.
Yeah.
But he's still going to be one of the better, like, he's going to be a consistent fantasy player for you.
Yeah.
I mean, because, okay, if I'm not looking at this thinking about, like, rankings of, like, players in terms of how good they are in the league.
He's top 20 in the NBA.
Yeah, he's a top 20 player. I guess in fantasy, it's so subjective because it's based on what you need.
Yeah.
I think he might go earlier, though. Because I'm thinking about this. This is 40. He's 41.
Yeah.
No, actually, maybe not. Well, no, because he'd be like, what? You'd be at the 5th round, for the first pick of the 5th round? I don't know, man. I feel like there are going to be drafts where he's going to probably go, like, 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah. He could go late 3rd.
I could see him going just because of his value and what he usually gives you in fantasy. I think 41 is a stretch.
Yeah.
Dude, Miles Bridges should not be a 5th round pick.
No.
He was in good last year when he came back. How do we, like, I don't know. He was good in fantasy when the one year the Hornets were relevant in the play-in. He was, they had 2 years of relevancy in play-in, but but when he really was, like, at his, like, peak, that was when he was, like, a good fantasy player. Because he was a guy that a lot of guys had under the radar, maybe not picked up, maybe picked up off waivers. I wouldn't pick Miles Bridges, like, in a 5th round. If I were, I'd actually probably put him more of, like, a 7th, 8th round guy. Like, if I'm starting to try and look at, like, guys that I need for my utility, that's where I put him. But 40, what is he?
45th.
5th? No. I don't think he's 45th.
Yeah.
Anybody that stands out to you right away?
They really, ESPN really likes Jalen Johnson. 43rd, I mean, he played 56 games. He was banged up a lot, but when he was on the floor, I mean, he was playing pretty well.
I mean, you gotta think that, like, that meaty part of, like, the rankings, right, are mostly guards. Jalen Johnson's the 3. So if you haven't picked a small forward yet, I guess, but I don't know.
No, I hear you. They got Rudy Gobert, I would never draft him top 50. That's just me personally. I understand why they're putting him in there because
there's not a lot of centers.
There's not a lot of centers, and obviously Chet Holmgren's in this list. I do expect a good, very good second year from Chet Holmgren for sure, but he did play all 82 games. He was very, very healthy. I understand it. Jalen Williams is just Mr. Consistent.
I would actually have him ahead. I would have him ahead of like almost everybody on this 10. I'd actually put him like right next to Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
Like in this 10, just because
you take him over Ingram.
Yeah, because dude, he had a lot of fantasy production.
I take Jalen Williams over Ingram.
Like, I can't imagine that somebody is going to like have the first pick in the 5th round and not think, oh shit, Jalen Williams is still available. Let me grab him. He literally gave me so many fantasy points last year, and he plays multiple positions. If you're playing on ESPN, he had the shooting guard, small forward, and I think point guard.
Yeah.
As his like designations.
Yeah.
So you can plug him at multiple positions, and he's the second best player on OKC.
Yeah.
Unless you think Chet is. Do you think Chet's the second best player, or do you think it's Jalen? Because I think right now it's Jalen in my eyes. But I'm gonna let you because you're really big on OKC.
I am.
So.
Oh wow, that's tough. I mean, I understand why some people will go Chet, some people will go Jalen Williams, but obviously if you go on potential, it's Chet Holmgren. If you're going off the potential,
Sure.
But the player, I go Jalen Williams.
Jalen Williams. Okay. And
yeah.
I feel like Jamal Murray at 50.
He could be the biggest steal of the draft from how this is playing. Now, I mean, I understand he played 59 games. He was hurt. You know, I had him on my team. He cost me a couple weeks. But
Jamal Murray's never been a top like draft pick.
Not fantasy wise, no, not really. You know, but if he is healthy, man, you get a guy like that in the late 5th, 6th round. Shit, man, sign me up for that. I'll take it any day of the week.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't play like how he did for Team Canada, then yeah, great. He's a great pickup for you then. I just look again. I just think Grayson Allen. I get he's been good in fantasy. He's been productive. Like he's a good production guy. Because I know that he was like 51.
Yeah.
I just want to point him out real quick. And I think like. There's guys like Kobe White. I think his fantasy numbers are going to go up this year.
He should be top 50.
Like he should definitely be higher, just in terms of his value, because he's gonna now. There's no DeMar this year, so now your production goes up more. So he's gonna probably be averaging more around 25, 26 points per game this year. You think that that's possible for him?
It's definitely possible. I mean, he was just under 20 last year.
I think once he got
the opportunity though.
Yeah,
no.
I think his average went up. He set his like career high in points in the playing game, so I think that's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, out of like everybody, who are your 3 like way too like high and then like way too low?
Wow, I would have to run through this again. Let's see. Who's way too high on this list? Kawhi Leonard. He needs to go down significantly.
You can't trust him.
Yeah, I think like guys like LaMelo's way too high. James Harden's too high. I'm not touching James Harden personally. If someone wants to take him in the 4th round, shit, you can have him.
You know somebody's going to because they love James. There's like this. There's definitely a lot of people out there that are huge James Harden fans, even though they know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
You know somebody's going to still draft him.
Yeah.
I would say people that are too high. I agree with you, James Harden. I also think he's going to be hurt.
Yep.
He's not going to play back-to-back games. He got paid again. I don't know how this guy keeps doing it. But bro's going to throw on like a fat suit again. Going to be eating too much Jack in the Box. Bro's going to have like all the tacos falling out of him this time. Kawhi, for sure. I agree with you on Kawhi. I just think Rudy Gobert as a 5th round pick is nasty work. I just don't think if you're at that point, I don't think anybody's going to really want to touch Rudy at that point. Because if you think about it, right, for the center, you already could have had Wemby, Embiid, Jokic, and again, designations, if they have 80 put as a center first, and then Sabonis, that's 5 already. Sengun would be 6.
Yeah.
And then you would have Chet, 7, and then Bam is 8. like you got 8 guys already. Like unless
I take
you're
Vooch over Rudy too.
okay, so 9 right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like if you really don't have a center, I just.
Did you say Cat? I take Cat over.
I would take Cat. I would take Cat in fantasy if I'm looking at it in fantasy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Rudy Gobert is your backup center.
Yeah.
I just think that there's just I don't know if I put him. I think he's a little too high, ironically, but yeah.
So we could do a little activity real quick here. So the players 1 through 10, where you think which player has like that's their best value at? Like for example, like Wemby's going 8. You'd be perfectly fine taking him 8, right? Because you'll get an early second round pick. You know, because sometimes having a 10-team league, you got Luka or Jokic, your top pick. You're sitting there waiting for a while.
Yeah. Like we know who 1 through 4 is going to probably be.
Yeah.
Like most people are going to take Luka, then Jokic, and then SGA. I had SGA in our league last year, and I was the 8th pick. And the fact that he's ranked as 3rd this year, it just speaks a lot.
It's the value, yeah.
Like his value is a lot.
Yeah.
And I still think Giannis still should be 4.
Mm-hmm. I agree. He still played 73 games. He was healthy.
Best value though for sure would be Wemby at 8. I do think Wemby's gonna be good. I just don't think he's worth the 4th overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
My personal opinion, I'm sure somebody will take him first. You're gonna have somebody in the league that's like, I love Wemby. I think he's gonna be the best player in the league this year. They're gonna take him. You know who's gonna be a steal though? If he falls that far, is gonna be a guy like Steph. Like I think Steph will be a steal.
Huge steal.
A huge steal for somebody, right? I think the overdrafts, like from the 1 through 10 though, for sure, would be like, are you really gonna take AD with your 9th overall pick? Or your 9th?
Yeah.
8th, 9th pick? I don't think you're going to. I don't see somebody saying, yeah, I'm gonna take AD. I think that most guys would take somebody like Donovan or Jalen Brunson before they take AD, and then they take AD with their 2nd pick.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they know that they're going to probably still have AD there if they want him. So that's going to be the thing. Who do you think is going to be the biggest risk player to take?
Well, it could be Ja. Could definitely be John Morant. We know the reasons why.
Yeah, of course.
In this pool of players, wow. Obviously, Kawhi did play 68 games last year. I understand then why he's ranked 25th on here, but it's typically the guys that you can quote injury prone, if that makes sense. Because like if Kawhi is healthy, he's easily top 25, without a doubt. John Morant's top 10 without a doubt. LaMelo does put up monster numbers when he plays. Kate Cunningham too. Like these guys, like if you pick them. Just hope they can stay healthy for you. That's all I'm going to tell you. I mean, there's a pool of guys that I'm personally going to stay away from this year. But, you know, some people like to take risks, man. And those are the players that, when they're on the floor, they really do produce, though. They really do.
No, I agree with you. I think if you're at the middle point of the first round, I would actually say Embiid's definitely a risky player to take. I just think that if you have no choice and you're kind of stuck there, if he hasn't been taken by like pick 8, I'd take him. But I would tell you right now, if you take him at earlier than 7, I think we have him at 7 on this list. You're taking him earlier than 7. That's a risk.
It is a huge risk
because you could have had. If you have the 4th pick and you're taking Embiid, and you could have had Giannis or Wemby or Tatum or Ant. Yeah, like that's the thing. I think for the value, dude, you're getting Ant as your 2nd pick.
Yeah, I think the thing with fantasy basketball is so interesting because typically like the rankings are so like, as we just been talking about this whole time, it's been so all over the place.
Well, yeah, because we're looking at it like, okay, if I was going to value that player just in the game of basketball, that guy should be way higher. Like, why am I? But if you think about it in fantasy terms.
Yeah. No, facts. Yeah, Embiid is definitely, very, very interesting pick there. it's those bigs in the beginning of the draft after obviously Wemby, Giannis, Jokic, like, and you got the pool, the Anthony Davis the Sabonis the Joel Embiid's, where they gonna go, and I think like the guards like Brunson, like Donovan Mitchell and stuff, like there's a lot of guys on their teams, man, that can produce. You know,
of course.
That's why like I personally would take Trae Young over both of them. Yeah, man, Sengun could be a winner.
I think he's definitely going to be a steal for somebody.
He's going to be a steal for somebody.
People see the thing with fantasy too is that people forget that there are like a lot of people that play fantasy basketball. They always look for the name value players. Yeah. Like, I think we also do that in fantasy football. You see one guy, it's like, oh, I know that name. Like, oh, I'm gonna take him just because I know like who he is. I've seen him play.
Yeah.
But in fantasy, doesn't necessarily give you that. I think Sengun. I think just because I do think that at some point that Houston's gonna have to move off of somebody. I don't think it's gonna be Sengun.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's gonna be a really good valued center in fantasy. He's gonna probably be putting up like 20, 10, and 5 or 6.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean he averaged just under 10 rebounds, 5 assists. I don't know what his points were, but I could definitely see somewhere between like 20 and 23 a game.
Yeah,
I think he'll get over 10 rebounds this year. And for a center averaging 5 assists, there's not many of them like that.
And the thing is, assists usually are valued more in fantasy. So if he's getting you like 5 to 6 assists, getting you like a double-double, which, and in some leagues, again, you get points if you get a double-double. Yeah. So it just depends if he can stay healthy. I think that's the other thing too, but I think he's a great value player.
Yeah.
Man. I think fantasy basketball will be interesting for sure. I know everybody's right now doing their fantasy football leagues. If you haven't already, best of luck to you.
Yep.
Nick, I don't know, have you done any yet?
Not yet, but I got 3 coming up. I got Friday, Monday, Wednesday.
Got one more tomorrow.
Yeah.
Craziest pick I've seen so far is Raheem Mostert, pick 9 in the first round.
Oh, jeez.
So, do not pick Mostert. Whatever you do, don't do it. And I saw somebody pick Harrison Butker in the 4th round. So, I've seen 2 that I'm just like, what? Already?
That's hilarious. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. If y'all want to join those leagues, let me know. Maybe those people won't be playing next year. I have no clue. The fantasy is fantasy time of the year again.
Yep.
Man. So, guys, let us know what you think of the fantasy episode. I think this was a lot of fun, Nick.
Yeah, very interesting.
Talking about rankings and just kind of giving our takes on this is our first time doing that. So, if you guys have any other ideas for us to do for any of these episodes of the podcast while we still wait for the NBA season to start coming back, leave us some ideas in the comments on our YouTube page. DM us on X or add us on X, or send a message to me or Nick via like social media or through message. Either way, we'll get back to you guys on your ideas or anything that you guys want to talk about. And then I think, like we've always said, we're always open to having guests on the podcast.
Absolutely.
So, like, I'm sure that you guys have seen throughout the last 2 years, we've had a bunch of great guests that have come on the show, talk hoops with us. We all have a great time having a good conversation. Our last one was when we had Sanko and Ryan talking about the Celtics championship. That was a lot of fun. So if you guys want to come on before the season, talk about your team, hype them up a little bit of why you think that they're going to win the NBA Finals this year. If you really think that, then come on, man.
Yeah.
We appreciate, as always, for you guys listening to the end of the episode. If you have not already, please hit us with a like. It helps us and keeps our page a little more active and gets us a little bit more attention on the algorithms. Unfortunately, that is literally how you only get attention these days. So, so if you guys have not already, please subscribe, share with friends, family, or people that you think would enjoy some NBA basketball podcast talk. Nick, anything else you want to add before we end this episode this week?
No, man. I think we covered it, man. This episode, obviously, we never done this, and this is our 3rd NBA season, so this was very, very interesting. best of luck to all fantasy participants this year for fantasy basketball. I know I'm going to be in multiple leagues. I know a lot of big hoop fans are normally in multiple leagues. So, yeah, best of luck to everybody, man. And don't fall for the traps that Grim and I discussed.
Yeah.
When it comes to these rankings. Because if these are the rankings, man, this is going to be very, very interesting how people are going to draft.
Listen to this podcast before you draft. If you
Yes.
want to have some insights, if you've never done a basketball draft, listen to this. Because this
Facts.
one, we can at least tell you, like, hey, I think we know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Here. So, yeah, definitely I agree with you, though, Nick. Yeah, I hope that we shed some light on some stuff. But yeah, if these are the actual rankings, dude, when you like load onto the ESPN draft, that's it's going to be nasty work for some of those guys. So we'll see. We want to try and start uploading weekly as much as we can, schedules permitting us, allowing us to do that. But we're going to try as best as we can. So again, guys, thank you for listening. We will be back soon. So have a good rest of your night and enjoy the episode.